Hello, welcome to Chat UTD. I thought by now we'd know whether Erik ten Hag was staying next season or not. We don't. I firmly believe that as of probably Friday last week, the decision had been made to sack him. No, I don't know if Saturday on its own has changed that. If it has, I think that's slightly concerning. But it's difficult to know what to believe. I really liken this situation to the takeover, when the media was giving stories about one thing, stories about another, and no one really seemed to know what they were talking about. And really, until we get a confirmed answer by the club, we're all speculating. There's certain people that I would trust the information from, and it's the ones that are probably the quietest, really. I've said about him before, the guy that does the Muppeteers. Not, as I've said, not my cup of tea. Don't particularly warm to him at all, but his information's been spot on throughout the last 18 months with anything and everything to do with United, and he maintains that the club have absolutely interviewed various candidates, that they're in that process now. Saturday hasn't made any difference to it, and basically waiting for a decision. But I'm pretty sure he's also confirmed that as of last week, the club were looking to move Ten Hag on. So why have they not done it then? That would be the question to ask. The fans' reaction to the weekend is probably calming down a little bit more now, but I don't know about you, but as a football fan, my thinking is, of course, affected by emotion. And Saturday was an emotional day. It was such a high that it's difficult to think rationally. Just like, I suppose, if you're really scared or really anxious about something, you don't think rationally. You live off the fear and anxiety that you're feeling. Not to get too deep, but if you're in absolute euphoria and you make a decision on that euphoria, that can be equally as dangerous. And Saturday was euphoric. It was fantastic. It was a day that, as a United fan, we haven't had lots of those days, and it's a day I won't forget. But as a board of people that are making a decision on a manager, they can't be influenced by that, really. That's one game. It's a cup final. It's a significant game, but it's one game. You've been there since February. You must have been looking at it before then. You have enough evidence, I would suggest, to make your mind up as to whether Ten Hag is the right man to move forward or not. There's stories doing the rounds about McKenna was United's choice, really, and that he's going to sign new contracts with Ipswich. He's not signed it at the time I do the video. I think he's not signed it anyway, but that he's decent sources are saying that he's going to sign it, a new deal with Ipswich. That, if that happens and he is United's choice, I'm pretty sure what's happened there is that's driven by United and not him. I think if you'd have said to him, Kieran, do you want to come now? I don't think he's going to go, no, it's too soon. I think he's going to say, yeah, of course I do. So I think maybe what might be happening there, if we believe what we read, is that the club might have said to him, look, we're not sure what we're doing. Maybe we're going to give Ten Hag another year, see how it goes, put a clause in your contract with a fee that we're happy to pay, and that in all likelihood you'll be our next manager, or certainly you'll be our manager somewhere down the line when you've got a bit more experience. I can see that being driven by United rather than McKenna. So it doesn't seem like McKenna's been taken away. I would be surprised if that's the case. But you read stuff like on Friday they were definitely going to sack him, but now two people within the INEOS circle are starting to feel like they're more on board with him. What, based on the weekend? You just look reactionary and revisionary. It's that's really concerning if that's the case. So I don't know how good that source was. I think that came from someone from the United stand. You can go, but they have had information in the past. So again, it's just story after story circulating, which is all difficult to get a grasp of and get a hold of. One thing that I would ask, if they're going to keep Ten Hag, there's two key things. I'll start with the one that popped into my head first, although the second one's probably more important. The first thing is, if he stays, how are you going to guarantee as a club that you're going to sort out the medical and fitness department so that or have a squad big enough so that all his best players are fit for next season, all season? Because Ten Hag has proved himself incapable of being able to cope when his whole team isn't fit. And he's consistently used that as the reason, I would say excuse, for United's poor performance this season. He can't cope if he doesn't have his best 11 available. That's been seen. What's going to change next season? How are we suddenly not going to get injuries anymore? So either the fitness and medical department has to be completely redeveloped and changed, and we have to start solving that problem, or they have to have 2 players for each position in the squad. I mean 2 quality players for each position in the squad. At the moment, I would probably guess we haven't even got 1 player for every position in the team. How are you going to do that over one summer? So if he stays, you have to sort that out, because that's been proven this season. He can't do it. Can't do it unless his best team's there. He has to have a very unique set of circumstances for him, and then he can be a brilliant manager, as he showed on Saturday. That was a brilliant managerial performance by him on Saturday. But that's with all his ducks lined up in a row. You can't always guarantee that. The second thing is, if he stays, do they give him a new contract? There's issues within that. He at the moment, his contract, by all accounts, has something written into it that says he has a lot of power over transfers. They don't want that, INEOS. So that's a problem. If they give him a new contract, is he going to accept different terms? So that's an issue. If you give him a new contract and you've got some people that want him, some people that don't want him within the INEOS team, what if at Christmas we're 9th or 10th and there's no sign of improvement? You just give him a new contract, which you're going to have to spend a lot of money to buy him out of to get rid of him. If you don't give him a new contract and you just say, right, see out the next year, see how it goes, that basically indicates to me you've got no faith in him whatsoever, and what you really want to do is sack him, but you can't because the person that you want is not available, or you have listened to the backlash of the fans. I don't think INEOS want Ten Hag, and as much as the guy from the Muppeteers is saying they're not listening to fan reaction, I don't know. They were going to sack him before the weekend, and they're not. Why haven't they? If it's not to do with a reaction to Saturday, it's all very confusing. I think the result on Saturday has made things a lot more complex for INEOS. I can't get away from that. I think it has. If we'd have lost on Saturday, it had been announced that he was sacked on Saturday evening or Sunday. I'm 100% convinced of that. And I'm not saying that they wanted us to lose, because I'm sure they didn't, but it would have been a lot more straightforward. This wasn't part of the script. That not only were we going to win, but we were going to win in the way that we did. That wasn't smash and grab. That wasn't chaos ball. That was really well thought out, a really well put together structure that worked fantastically well. We were comfortable. City scored a goal because the keeper ballsed up a long range shot. They didn't really hurt us. They hit the bar, and Alvarez, is he called Alvarez? Had a couple of half decent, one very good chance and one other half chance. That's what they created in the whole game. It was a masterclass performance from United. So that wasn't part of the script. But Ten Hag's done that once in a very big occasion. He's done it once. The team, the players have put that together once. You've got a whole season of evidence that's the complete opposite of that. Players that can't stay fit, players that look undermotivated, players that are not sticking to game plans, a manager who's got no flexibility, a manager who won't change things in games when we're getting absolutely overrun time after time after time in midfield, and he won't change anything. And his only mitigation, he says to that, is injuries. So you've got all of that evidence versus one game. This is a real crossroads moment for United and for Ten Hag. If Ten Hag stays, we could look back at this and say Saturday was the moment. That was his moment when, thank God, the INEOS listened, the INEOS saw something different in him, he stayed, and he built something special over the next few years. Or, more likely, in my opinion, Saturday was a one-off thing where it all came together. It was a day we'll never forget, but in a few months' time, we're faced with all the same problems we've had this year, and we wished it should have been his farewell, and we should have been ruthless, and we should have stuck to our conviction. And I think it's more likely to be that one. personally. And Mark Goldbridge, who's a staunch supporter of Erik Ten Hag, to the point, to his detriment at times, I think, has said he wants Erik Ten Hag to continue because we're going into the third year of what he calls a project, and that if we abandon that project now, we're back at what he calls ground zero. We're back to square one again, where we've got another manager, completely new ideas, completely new everything, when we're 2 years into something here. I see what he means, but I disagree. I don't feel like we're 2 years into Erik Ten Hag. I feel like he's been made the manager and he's managed it as best he could. But this team doesn't have his fingerprints on it. This team doesn't play like his team. And you could say, well, that's not fair on him, that he's not been given the support he needs to make it his team. The only players he's got, much contrary to popular opinion, that are his players are Anthony, Martinez and Onana. The others, a lot of free signings, a lot of loan signings, and players that we've overpaid for, but that's the club, not necessarily him. So you could say he's unlucky in that respect. But in terms of using that as a reason to keep him because he's 2 years into his project, I think it supports my argument that no, we're not. This is just, anyone could have been the manager in the last couple of years, and you can tear it up now and someone starts again, and it's not going to make that much difference, because basically we're tearing up and starting again anyway with INEOS this summer, supposedly, even if Ten Hag stays. I don't look at Ten Hag and say, oh, we're just so close to the, we're on the cusp of finding out what his magic is, or what he's doing, or what he's bringing to the table. We're so close to it. We're not so close to it. We've had a strong end to the season where he's gone actually further away from what he wants to do in order to salvage some face at the end of a season. So we may as well rip it up and start again. We're not 2 years into a project. It doesn't feel like that. So if someone else comes in, I go, right, okay, clear the decks. The players need to go whatever. There's a number of players that need to go whatever, whoever the manager is. Clear the decks, start again. There's nothing to salvage here. If I went through the team, the ones that I think you'd have to keep. I personally don't rate Onana that highly, but he's been there 1 year as a goalkeeper. You're going to get another year at least. So he's staying regardless. I'd keep Wan-Bissaka, but the club isn't going to, so I'm not going to include him in it. I'm not sure Dallow's the long-term future of United. I have my doubts about him, but he's had a super season this season, so he's in it. So you've got Onana, Dallow, Martinez, Mainu, Bruno, Rasmus, Garnacho. So you've got 7 players there. The rest for me can go. They won't, but that for me is what I'd say is kind of like, that's worth building on. But Rasmus isn't ready to lead the line for Man United. Garnacho's been overplayed because we haven't had too many other options. So too is Mainu. So there's 3 players there you can't hang your hat on in terms of, or you shouldn't have to hang your hat on, starting week in, week out. Martinez, as much as I love him, is injury prone, hasn't stayed fit for a year. That needs to be sorted out. So 4 of those players, I really like all of them. You wouldn't hang your hat on to build a team around for different reasons. The whole thing needs stripping apart. This project we're talking about, we're not 2 or 3 players away. A project is something where a manager over 2 years has been through his ups and downs, but he's persevered with his style of play. You can start to see some chinks of light at the end of the tunnel with his style of play, and he's probably 3 or 4 players away from it really exploding into what he wants. We're not 3 or 4 players away. We're 8 or 9 players away. We need to sell probably 11, 12 players, or let go of on frees or whatever. And we need to bring in probably 7 or 8 and then supplement the rest with youth. That's not a project that's 2 years in. What needed to happen 2 or 3 years ago with the clear out hasn't happened. And again, we can make that a mitigating circumstance for Ten Hag. Absolutely we can, but it's not a reason to keep him in the job. Whatever happens, we're supposed to be starting again. I was excited last week because of McKenna. I thought that was different. It was bold. It showed conviction in what INEOS are saying that they're going to do. And people can disagree, he might be the wrong person, but I like the idea of it. A young, up-and-coming manager who comes and makes his name at United, who is a project manager, who grows and evolves with the club. And I like that. I like he's got some history at United. I like he supported United. I've listened to a few of his interviews since finding out he possibly could get the job. He speaks well, very grounded, seems to have the right type of values. I think would play the style of football we like. It now seems that's not on the cards unless something changes. That could change again, of course. So if he's not on the cards, the names we're being fed now are Thomas Frank. That's a no for me. Thomas Tuchel, no. De Zerbi, no. Pochettino. I like Pochettino, as I said before, but is he worth sacking Ten Hag for? Seems a sideward step to me. People are still talking about Southgate, and I wonder if that might happen. They might keep Ten Hag for a few months, and then when it's more convenient, sack him and bring Southgate in if he really is a true contender. But it would be a no from me with Southgate. So what are we left with? They've got to decide, is there a manager there that can come in and get the best out of these players if they can't do the clear out they need? Or is Ten Hag the right man to take that forward? Maybe because he does know them a little bit better, but he showed no evidence he can do it so far, really. Certainly not this season. Or do we want a manager who we completely clear the decks for and they build something from ground up? Because that for me is what needs to happen. Can they do a better job than Ten Hag? And they need to spread their net wider. If the only innovative name they've come up with in 4 months is Kieran McKenna, because those other names are really uninspiring, really. And if it's a choice between those other names I just mentioned there or Ten Hag staying, they may as well keep Ten Hag and see how it goes for a few months. That brings me back then to, well, yeah, but on what premise does he get a new contract? I wouldn't give him a new contract. But then he's on a probationary period. Is he going to want to do that? Is that good for the club? So this is a big decision, a really big decision. And I go back and forth in terms of who to believe. But I do believe he was going, and something has changed. The only thing really you can point to is Saturday, and you've got a very good source in the Muppeteers saying that's got nothing to do with it. Need some clarity, don't we? I think we need to know, and if they know and they're holding fire, I understand that, and that's quite clever. As a PR exercise, I think that's clever, while the fans just calm themselves down after the weekend. If they don't know, or they've changed their mind, that smacks of massive indecisiveness. That smacks of the Glazers. It smacks of running with the hares and jumping with the hounds. You have to be strong. You have to have, I've used this word so many times in the last few videos, you have to have conviction in what you're doing. So the truth is we don't know. But they're going to have to make a decision soon, and it will come out, won't it? So that's my summary of all things United and everything at the moment is about really what happens next with the manager, and then subsequently, of course, the squad. I think one thing just to finish on that became very clear at the weekend is that there's an individual in that team who, without question, has something written into his contract about game time. Without question, is still untouchable, and without question will not be gotten rid of this summer, which means that all of the things that INEOS are saying about culture and the things that players have to abide by don't apply to one very high profile player who flies in the face of all that and still plays, still gets in the team, still gets in the squad, and still can stay at the club. And that, for me, culturally, is a very dangerous precedent to set, and one that, in my opinion, won't change. And I think that's going to cause them a big problem moving forward unless his performances and his attitude changes significantly in the next few months. I'll leave you with that. Glazers out.